Guys, what's going on? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are talking all about the upcoming Mercury retrograde and what it means for your zodiac sign. Mercury is stationing retrograde in the sign of Aquarius on January 14th, this Friday. And this is going to be a little bit different than the typical Mercury retrograde that we see 3 times a year. We're going to talk about why that is, but it's going to be a little bit more wacky, a little bit more unpredictable and intense than what we're kind of used to. So I'm going to break this video down into like 3 different sections. We're first going to talk about what is Mercury retrograde. So if you're new to astrology, you're definitely going to want to watch this part, or if you just want a refresher about what Mercury retrograde is all about, then definitely watch that part. We're going to talk about the influence of Aquarius mixed in with this Mercury retrograde and what that means. And then the second portion of this video, you're gonna wanna watch this because this is gonna give you like all the background info, all the context that you're gonna need to really know what to expect. We're gonna kind of go through the timeline of this Mercury retrograde cycle. We're gonna talk about the important dates and the important aspects that Mercury is making during its retrograde, which is what is going to make this Mercury retrograde a little wacky. So you're definitely gonna wanna watch that. And then the third portion of this video, we're going to go through all 12 zodiac signs. So what this Mercury retrograde is going to be highlighting for you, what you can kind of expect. And when we get to that part, you're going to want to watch for your rising sign. You can also watch for your sun sign, but your rising sign is going to be the most literal and the most accurate because that's going to show you the exact houses in your chart that are going to be activated by Mercury retrograde. There will be timestamps for absolutely everything in the description box and the comment section so you can skip around, but let's just jump right into this. Thank you guys for being here with me. If you like this video, if you like these types of like prediction transit videos, give this a thumbs up. I will keep making them and let's get started. Okay, so what is Mercury retrograde? Every planet goes retrograde, and essentially what's happening when a planet goes retrograde, from our view on Earth, it appears that the planet is moving backwards through the zodiac. So it's moving backwards in degrees, kind of like retracing its steps of where it just was. So when a planet goes retrograde, it causes us to have to revisit things in our lives that relate to that planet. So something is coming back around, something is coming back to the surface, something is coming back into our awareness that we need to take a second look at, a closer look at. Maybe there's unfinished business somewhere, an unfinished project, an unfinished conversation. Maybe there's a lesson that we need to learn that we still haven't learned, so that's coming back. A lot of times retrogrades can bring things back that are in need of closure. So we're revisiting something from the past or something that we've been overlooking. Now, retrogrades are all about re's, okay? So reflect, review, retreat, redo, reanalyze. It's about going back and taking a second look at something. Now, Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year. We are used to this energy. It happens often. Mercury retrograde is not going to be something that's like this catastrophic, terrible disaster. Usually Mercury retrograde is just annoying and frustrating and irritating to deal with. Really common things with Mercury retrograde are delays, mishaps, okay? Mishaps, obstacles, frustrating things coming up, being thrown at us that we have to kind of address and deal with and learn to adapt to. The way that I think about Mercury retrograde, it's kind of like Mercury shows up, causes chaos in our lives, and then leaves. If you look at the symbol of Mercury, it looks like this little like guy with devil horns. Mercury is known as the trickster of the zodiac. So Mercury kind of causes a little bit of chaos and then just poof, like disappears, right? So this is not going to be like the end of the world. Your life is not ending. It's more so just annoying delays and obstacles that we have to just kind of roll with the punches. But these delays and these obstacles are going to be related to Mercury themes, the things in our lives that Mercury rules. So let's talk about Mercury. Mercury is the planet, first of all, of communication. Mercury is the messenger of the zodiac. Zodiac. So Mercury is all about our communication. It's also about our thoughts, our ideas. Mercury also rules cars. That is a big thing. You see this a lot with Mercury retrograde. It's one of the most common things I see. Car issues, something breaking on your car, you get a flat tire in a really inconvenient time when Mercury is retrograde. So we've got communication, we've got cars. Mercury also rules technology and electronics. Mercury also rules the internet. We see this time and time again with Mercury retrograde. The internet goes down. Social media doesn't work. There's these massive internet outages across the country, right? So Mercury is big when it comes to the internet. Especially now, there's so many people working remotely, working from home. So Mercury retrograde can really cause some frustration when it comes to that stuff. Mercury also rules mail, shipping, sending and receiving packages. Mercury also rules logistics and transportation in general. Mercury rules short distance travel, so little short trips you go on, but it also rules our everyday like routine and commutes. So Mercury rules like the grocery store that you go to, your commute to work, the things that you do in the immediate area of where you live in the workplace, and just the things you do when you're going about your business. So on a day-to-day basis. So that's why Mercury is going to bring those delays in your commute to work. Leave 15 minutes early during Mercury retrograde because you're going to get stopped by a train that's moving super slow. You're going to have to sit there for 20 minutes. You're going to get off on the wrong exit. You're so used to this routine, you could do it with your eyes closed, but for some reason Mercury goes retrograde, you miss your exit. Now you've added 30 minutes onto your trip. Things like this. So Mercury is going to cause delays, obstacles, frustrations, a little bit of chaos when it comes to all of the things that we just talked about. And these things are just going to happen out of the blue. We're going to have to tackle it, adjust, and go with the flow in the moment. Now, let's talk about the influence of Aquarius here. This is where things start to get interesting because when Mercury is in Aquarius, that's usually a good place for Mercury. Aquarius is a similar energy to Mercury in a way. What's interesting about this is Mercury, we're going to talk more about this when we get further into the video, but Mercury is going to go retrograde in a conjunction with Saturn and in a square to Uranus. Now, what's interesting about this is Saturn and Uranus are the two planets that rule Aquarius. Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. And it's a really interesting dynamic because we think of Aquarius as this progressive, innovative, rebellious, freedom-loving sign that wants to step outside of the box and be unique and shake up the status quo and do things differently. And that's kind of the Uranus influence on Aquarius. But Saturn is really very opposite of that. Saturn is all about rules, restrictions, guidelines. So when we have this Saturn and this Uranus influence with Mercury in Aquarius going retrograde, it's kind of like this battle between wanting to break out and do something different and feeling kind of restricted and stuck because Aquarius is a fixed sign. It's a stubborn energy. And Saturn, I find, kind of brings out the more rigid and dogmatic energy that Aquarius has. Aquarius can be very stuck in its ways. Even though it has this out-of-the-box unique ideas, it's also kind of like thinks it's right, thinks its way is the best way, doesn't really want to hear your way because my way is right. So it's a really interesting dynamic. And when you see the way that Mercury is going to be aspecting these other planets throughout its retrograde cycle, you're going to see why this is kind of a wacky, turbulent energy. So that's kind of the breakdown of Mercury retrograde and Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of just like delays, obstacles, frustrations, irritations, just inconvenient things happening in our day-to-day life and definitely in our communication. So Mercury retrograde, double check your emails, double check your texts. And another thing I will mention before we jump into the next part of this video, it's a pretty common thing. You'll hear people say, don't sign a contract during Mercury retrograde. And while it is a good idea to avoid doing things like that, and if you can push it off till after retrograde, yes, that is a good thing, but it doesn't mean you can't sign a contract. But what I have seen time and time again is, for example, somebody will close on a house during during Mercury retrograde. And then when it's time to move into that house, there's a lot of obstacles, there's a lot of delays, unforeseen issues within the house that they have to deal with, because Mercury does rule contracts, right? It's all communication, especially written communication. So that's why, you know, double check your contracts, your emails, your text messages. Be careful about putting your foot in your mouth, sending the wrong thing to the wrong person. But yeah, Mercury retrograde, delays, irritations, frustrations. Okay, so let's get to the juicy stuff. So let's talk about the timeline of Mercury retrograde, the key dates, the key aspects that you're going to want to know about. So Mercury is going to station retrograde in Aquarius, 10 degrees of Aquarius, on the 14th of January, this Friday. And when Mercury stations retrograde, it's going to be in a conjunction with Saturn, and it's going to be exactly squaring Uranus. So let's break this down like piece by piece. Now, Mercury conjunct Saturn. As Mercury goes through its retrograde cycle, it's going to start to move a little further away from Saturn, but especially for like the first few days of Mercury stationing retrograde, it's going to be sitting pretty close to Saturn. And the main thing that this can bring, and what you'll probably notice the most, is Mercury conjunct Saturn can really bring us negative thinking and a pessimistic mental state, a pessimistic attitude. It makes us more prone to focusing on the negative or challenging aspects of a situation. It's not as easy to look on the bright side. And this can also bring a harshness or a coldness to our communication with others. Mercury is the mind's planet. It rules the mind. It rules our thinking. And Saturn is a very restrictive, harsh, it could be very cold. It brings a lot of challenges and obstacles, and just the energy of Saturn can be kind of like sad and depressing to deal with. Saturn makes us like work really, really hard in order to gain anything. Saturn is all about like life's hard lessons. Saturn is known as like the dad in the Zodiac. It's very authoritative, right? So when these two planets come together, it can just bring a negative, pessimistic energy to our mental state. It's really kind of like the energy of just feeling stuck in a rut, very stuck. Saturn makes us feel stuck and like we just can't make any progress. And Saturn also rules authority figures, right? So for example, something you want to be aware of, if you go into work and your boss is in a bad mood, you know, maybe don't push their buttons that day, right? This could bring some sort of tension or argument between you and a parent, something like this. Now, my advice for this energy is to keep yourself busy, but like maybe keep yourself busy with like busy work, right? Like maybe don't try and work on a bunch of things that require a lot of like mental energy. Do busy work, do things to kind of keep yourself distracted. That way you're not getting stuck in those pessimistic thoughts and just like feeling down and depressed. Because we're kind of just set up here to be irritated with delays in communication and just things not really going according to plan. So try and stay busy, try and keep yourself distracted in like a very positive way. Now the next part of this is while Mercury is in a conjunction with Saturn, it's also going to be in an exact square to Uranus, and squares bring tension. They bring obstacles. Squares are kind of like the energy of Saturn, right? But it's going to be squaring Uranus. And this energy is going to be most potent for the first few days, maybe like the first week of Mercury retrograde. It will start to get better, but this is going to be very potent because it's squaring Uranus exactly. So what does this mean? Well, Uranus is a planet that just kind of causes chaos. It causes turbulence, and it's the planet of surprises and shocking events. Now, remember, this isn't going to be like life-destroying stuff. This is going to be more irritating, annoying things, but it's, you know how I would describe this? It's kind of like our typical Mercury retrograde energy, but just a little bit more intense and a little bit more annoying. It's just kind of like Mercury retrograde times 2. So Mercury squaring Uranus, this is going to cause unexpected change to our routines, to our commutes. This is gonna cause like very out of the blue, unexpected, and maybe even shocking news or information or communication coming our way. Something is happening unexpectedly that's going to force us to have to change direction. attention. And if we don't, it's going to cause us to be really anxious and just filled with a lot of tension. It's going to leave us in a very nervous and unsettled energy. So be prepared to have to adjust and to go with the flow. And if an obstacle arises, if something comes out of the blue, you just have to adjust. You just have to adapt. That's how you're going to survive this and not make yourself crazy. So this is kind of just like an anxious, nervous energy and strange and unusual things kind of just coming out of nowhere. So that's like the first half of Mercury retrograde, right? That's how we start Mercury retrograde. But now here's where things kind of shift and change. On the 25th of January, Mercury is going to move back into Capricorn, right? Mercury has been transiting backwards in degree through Aquarius. Now it's back in Capricorn. Mercury was in Capricorn from mid-December to like the very beginning of January. Okay, so for the second half of December, Mercury was transiting Capricorn. Now Mercury is back in Capricorn. This is the part of the retrograde cycle where the past comes back, where we have to revisit something. So it is very likely that something that occurred, something that was going on the second half of December for you is going to come back. You're going to have to revisit it. Now, this is going to be revisiting conversations. This is going to be getting closure in a situation, something kind of coming to its finality, something kind of be wrapping up, right? We're wrapping something up that either was left unfinished at that time or we didn't get the closure that it needed. We're revisiting something to kind of close that cycle out. This could also be like an internal thing as well, because retrogrades do tend to turn our attention inwards. So this could be some form of closure or an ending or wrapping something up on a more internal level. Maybe it's not something that's actually playing out in your external world, but honestly, it could go either way or both. And then Mercury is going to finish out its retrograde in the sign of Capricorn, and Mercury will station direct in Capricorn on February 4th. That is when Mercury's retrograde officially ends. But remember, we have a shadow period. Mercury will be in its shadow until February 23rd, I believe, February 23rd, 24th, and it will move back into Aquarius on Valentine's Day. So expect to kind of revisit something from the past from the 25th of January to mid-February. That is when we're kind of closing out some cycle, finishing some project, having a final conversation, making a final decision about something. Now, I also think it's worth noting that while all of this is going on, we also have Venus retrograde. Venus is retrograde this whole time. So that's why there's this theme of relationships, whether it's romantic or business partnerships, especially with that Capricorn influence. And with that Capricorn influence brings finances. So it's just interesting that we have, Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde. Venus is obviously the planet of relationships, love, money. Mercury is all about communication, decisions. So it's like these two things together. It wouldn't surprise me if there is like a heavy theme of relationships or business partnerships that are kind of at the forefront here for you during this time. And things also get pretty interesting because on January 29th, Venus is going to station direct. And on that day, Mercury retrograde makes an exact conjunction to Pluto at 26 degrees Capricorn. So again, this is why I feel like there's this big theme of closure and endings and making final decisions within relationships. Okay, because now we've got Mercury in a conjunction with Pluto for the rest of this Mercury retrograde. And this is the last thing we're going to talk about here. Mercury conjunct Pluto. What does that mean? I think the main thing you're going to see is really intense conversations, okay? Intense and transformative conversations where there's something ending, where we're moving forward and we're never looking back. Because Pluto is the planet of endings. It's the planet of death and rebirth. It's a very transformative energy. And Pluto also exposes the truth. It exposes secrets. It brings things that are out of our awareness to the forefront. Before the end of Mercury retrograde with Mercury conjunct Pluto, you can definitely find out information. that is maybe kind of shocking, or something really intense, something that just changes things for the future. Like you can never unknow this information. This could be really intense conversations. This can also bring power struggle within our communication with other people, especially with that Capricorn influence. Capricorn wants to be in charge. It's all about authority, right? So there could definitely be some intense conversations, some intense endings, some secrets revealed, some things getting exposed. And my advice for Mercury conjunct Pluto is, it's kind of the energy of, don't ask questions that you don't really want the answer to. Don't go searching for things that you don't really want to know about, because Mercury conjunct Pluto can make us have really obsessive thinking. We can get kind of fixated on something. We can become obsessed with this search for the truth, uncovering the truth. It's like when Mercury is conjunct Pluto, everything's a conspiracy and we want to get to the bottom of it. And this can also cause us to do some really deep analyzing of our own psyche. Some really deep psychological reflection is going to be going on here. So that is how we end out Mercury retrograde. When Mercury stations direct on February 4th, it's still going to be in that close conjunction with Pluto. So you can see that we start Mercury retrograde with a very turbulent and unexpected like bang, and then we end it with a bang for sure. And then in between, we're like revisiting the past, and it's a very weird energy. This is going to be an interesting Mercury retrograde to say the least. But I do see a strong energy of closure, and a strong energy of like self-discovery. And really just seeing the truth of situations. And, you know, this is going to be an energy where when all is said and done, you can kind of just move forward, like leave the BS in the past and move forward. So it's going to be interesting, but I like it. Okay. I like this for us. And with the Aquarius, you know, influence here, there is also this desire to like break free and to kind of stand your ground, take your power back, you know, stop keeping, you know, not keeping yourself restricted, not keeping yourself boxed in, like doing what you want and doing what's best for you. All right, so now let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs. So, all right, let's jump into this. We're going to start here with Aries. So for Aries rising, Mercury is going retrograde in your 11th house of friendships, groups, networks. The 11th house also has to do with social media, and Mercury will be squaring Uranus in your 2nd house. So first of all, huge theme here when it comes to your friendships, or a group of friends. And there could be tension between you and a friend having to do with money. For sure that's a huge way this could play out. This now, on a more like internal level, this could be you reevaluating the value of your friendships. Like maybe there's a friendship or a friend group where you're kind of thinking to yourself, like, is this actually bringing me value? Like, is this actually a relationship worth having, a friendship worth having? But definitely there could be an issue, tension, an argument, something that happens between you and a friend having to do with something financial. 2nd house rules your finances, your possessions. So that's a thing. Another thing that could happen, I feel like for a lot of you, it's very possible some unexpected information comes to you through social media. It could be a friendship that is like a social media friendship, or you could just find something out. There could be something revealed to you through social media somehow. Now for like the 2nd half of Mercury retrograde, when Mercury moves back into Capricorn, Mercury is going to be finishing its retrograde in your 10th house of career, public reputation, and authority figures. And now you also have Mercury ruling your 6th house of work and daily routines and your 3rd house. So you're going to be revisiting something work related. Okay. There could be a power struggle within the workplace. There could be a change within your career that like it alters your daily routine in some way. Yeah, there could be a change happening in your career, something going on like with your boss. And if this doesn't have to do with career, it would have to do with like your big picture goals. And this is likely something that already surfaced at the second half of December of last year. It's coming back around. So there's something within the workplace or related to your goals or related to an authority figure, or maybe all three of those things, right? That is going to come back up. It's going to have to be addressed. There might have to be like a final decision made. There could be some sort of like harsh conversation that happens, but definitely for you guys, there is a theme here for you, all of Mercury retrograde having to do with friendships, having to do with finance, having to do with your career and your goals. Okay, so for Taurus and Taurus rising, Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde in your 10th house of career, public reputation, big picture goals, authority figures, and it's going to be squaring Uranus in your first house. So right away, there's a big theme here for you guys with career. Now, you have been feeling a very tense energy for a long time because you've got Uranus in your first house here. You've been feeling this need to rebel, to break free. You're desiring independence. Maybe you've been feeling, and this again could have to do in the workplace, wanting to stand your ground, stand up for yourself. And this tension has been building. You've been feeling this for a while. So now when Mercury goes retrograde and squares Uranus in your first house, you could do something kind of bold, or something could happen that could really trigger this tense feeling that like you've been feeling restrictive. You've been wanting to do something for yourself, right? And now this could get triggered during Mercury retrograde. Because we also have here, you know, Mercury rules your second house of finances and possessions and your fifth house of joy, pleasure, hobbies, and fun. So I really feel like you guys are desiring to do something that makes you happy, and you've been feeling this way for a long time. You want to do something that brings you genuine joy and pleasure. So this Mercury retrograde could definitely be kind of triggering this like career tension that you've been experiencing. And you could do something kind of like radical or wild. Whatever kind of takes place during Mercury retrograde, it might kind of cause you to really think about your big picture goals. What do you really want? What's going to make you happy? You know, how can I make money, but also, you know, do what I love? There's an energy here of that. Now, when Mercury moves back into Capricorn and you finish out the retrograde with Capricorn, with Mercury in Capricorn, it's going to be in your 9th house of spirituality, higher knowledge, higher wisdom, religion, travel. So I see this for you guys as being some sort of spiritual epiphany. Mercury retrograde is bringing you some sort of eye-opening spiritual epiphany where you just kind of, where things start to click, like you just really realize what it is that you really want. And this is going to be profound. There's going to be something either being realized internally within yourself or something externally happening, you know, to you that kind of really gives you a lot of clarity, and it's going to help you to know what your next move is going to be. All right, so for Gemini rising, so you guys are ruled by Mercury. Mercury retrograde transits probably hit you guys pretty hard. So Mercury is going to be going retrograde in your 9th house of philosophy, faith, religion, spirituality, higher learning, higher education, travel, out of the country travel. And it will be squaring Uranus in your 12th house. Now, the 12th house is the unconscious. It's things that are kept hidden from us. It also has to do with spirituality. It's a very like introspective, kind of secretive house. So the first thing that really sticks out here, if you are planning on either going out of the country or planning an out of the country trip during Mercury retrograde, expect delays and expect obstacles. I would be kind of careful about making any out of the country travel plans. If you already have something booked, it's like, well, what are you going to do about it? But I wouldn't book an overseas trip or an out of the country trip during Mercury retrograde. Now, this is also giving me that like spiritual awakening vibe. There's could be something kind of unexpected that comes into your conscious awareness that kind of changes your perspective on life almost. Now, this could have to do with like your ancestry or your family, but this is some sort of like spiritual epiphany that kind of changes you. It changes the way that maybe you look at yourself or life or the world at large or your family. So there's definitely that energy here because Mercury rules your first house of the self and your fourth house of family, roots, ancestry, your home, stuff like this. And this is definitely going to be a very introspective time for Geminis, for sure. Now, when Mercury moves back into Capricorn, you're going to finish out this retrograde with Mercury in your 8th house. So everything I just said about that spiritual epiphany, that eye-opening realization, that's going to be taken to an even deeper level here. There's something changing really deeply for you. And I don't see this being a bad thing. It's a spiritual awakening type of vibe because the 8th house rules death. It rules secrets. It rules those really deep, dark parts of our psyche. It rules our trauma. And it is also a very spiritual house. You have very spiritual and internal houses being activated. So there's some really deep realization that's going to kind of come out of nowhere. That's really going to change the way that you look at yourself, your family, your life, something like this. All right. So for Cancer and Cancer rising, Mercury is stationing retrograde in your 8th house of shared resources, debt, death. 8th house has to do with secrets, with trauma, with things that are kept hidden from us. And it will be squaring Uranus in your 11th house. So tension, argument, issue between you and your friend, between you and a friend, and it could have to do with money because the 8th house has to do with shared resources. So there could be an argument or tension between you and a friend that has to do with money. This could have to do with a sibling or a neighbor as well because Mercury does rule your 3rd house. Definitely unexpected communication coming in. Now, Mercury also rules your 12th house, and the 12th house is things that are kept hidden, but it's also the house of hidden enemies. So between 8th house, 11th house, 12th house, this is the type of energy where maybe you realize that one of your friends isn't really your friends. Somebody could definitely be like screwing you over financially, to be honest. So yeah, it might be revealed that somebody's not really your friend. Yeah, I see that. I see that heavy here because now, also, when Mercury moves back into Capricorn, you're going to finish out Mercury retrograde with Mercury in your 7th house. 7th house is the house of relationships. So there's something happening here with a relationship. 7th house is all relationships between like us and another person. So it could be like a business relationship, a friend relationship, a romantic relationship. But I feel more like a friend vibe. Something is happening within a relationship here. And with that Pluto energy, there could be a relationship that is ending. So don't be afraid of this. This Mercury retrograde could just reveal that there's somebody in your life that shouldn't be there. There's somebody that you think is a friend that you might be involved with financially that is not actually on your team. And if that gets revealed to you, Mercury retrograde, act accordingly. But this could also end, your Mercury retrograde could end with you having just a very important and intense conversation with this person, or having a conversation again with a sibling or a neighbor, somebody that's maybe like closely involved, but not really involved. This is going to get resolved, whether you let a friendship go or you have a conversation, but there's going to need to be honesty here. There's going to have to be an honest conversation to resolve this. And then I'm going to tell you to use your intuition about what to do with this person. If you have a bad feeling, this is the time to end that relationship, especially with, Venus retrograde here. So yeah, relationship, something's going on, could have to do with money. That's what's happening for you guys. I also do just want to mention, this might not really be that deep, right? Like it might not be that deep. This could be something as simple as like a friend breaks something of yours, breaks something of value, something like that. So it might not be something super heavy and super deep, but there just could be something, that has to do with your possessions or your money that causes an argument with a friend. All right, so for Leo and Leo rising, Mercury is stationing retrograde in your 7th house of relationships. This is all one-on-one relationships that we have in our life. So whether it's romantic, friendship, family, a business relationship, but then Mercury is going to be squaring Uranus in your 10th house of career, public reputation, authority figures. And then you also have Mercury ruling your 2nd house of money, possessions, finances, and your 11th house of friendships, networks, groups. So there's something being highlighted here. There's tension or a really bizarre miscommunication between you and somebody in the workplace or a friend. Now, this is the type of energy of if you work with a friend or if you are somehow financially intertwined with a friend, you're like involved financially with a friend, it's somehow like a work friendship. It's kind of the energy of if you work with a friend to some level and one of you is like technically in charge of the other one, but you're friends, so there's like this blurred line, and it's kind of like setting you up for like a miscommunication or like a power struggle of some sort. So there's some sort of, again, miscommunication, tension between you and somebody in the workplace that I'm assuming this is somebody you would consider a friend to some degree. Now, when Mercury moves back into Capricorn, Mercury is going to be finishing its retrograde in your 6th house of daily routines, work, coworkers, your health, your pets. So again, there's this theme here of work and coworkers and then friendships, and there's like money involved somehow. So this situation is going to get resolved because I feel like this is going to be something very bizarre, out of the blue. It's not like a friendship ending problem, but there's going to need to be an honest conversation between you and this coworker or this friend, something like that. But it will get straightened out. Things will get like back into balance and back on track. Yeah, so a very bizarre miscommunication is probably going to happen here. Okay, so for Virgo and Virgo rising, Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde in your 6th house of daily routines, work, coworkers, your health, your pets, and it's going to be squaring Uranus in your 9th house. The 9th house is the house of philosophy, spirituality, religion, travel. I don't see this being the worst thing for you guys. Now, you guys are ruled by Mercury, so Mercury retrogrades hit you guys hard. What I really see this being is just a lot of frustrations and delays in your daily routine, maybe in your work. There could be something that comes up with a pet. But here's the thing though, you guys, there is a really strong need here for you to focus on yourself, because I almost feel like you guys are going to be feeling not emotionally, maybe you will, but I feel like you're going to be feeling spiritually depleted. Kind of just like exhausted. You've probably been taking on way too much work. You've been taking on too much. There's a need for you to shift the focus back to yourself, and you're going to be able to do that. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But what's really important about this, you guys really need to be careful, because when you take on too much stress and too much work, it really affects you physically. It affects your physical health, your mental health. So I see you guys being frustrated, overworked, and you really need to kind of take a breather so that you can kind of refill your spiritual cup, right? Like just your sense of feeling really good. Now, this is great though, because when Mercury goes back into Capricorn, you're going to finish the retrograde out with Mercury in your 5th house. The 5th house is the house of love, sex, pleasure, fun, joy, your hobbies, children. It's the house of just doing what you love because you love to do it. It's just a really happy, childlike energy type of house. So you guys are going to have an opportunity here to reconnect to a hobby, to reconnect to what really just brings you joy, disconnect and just have fun. Have fun this Mercury retrograde. Like whatever annoyances come your way, try your best to brush it off and just do something fun, do something playful, you know, have sex, I don't know, just do something fun. Because it's also possible that you guys are maybe not feeling very fulfilled in your work life right now. There's really a need for balance when it comes to focusing on yourself and having fun. You guys need to let loose. So I love this for you, because this 5th house energy is going to allow you to get out of your funk, and you might have a really profound realization towards the end of Mercury retrograde where you realize like, wow, my quality of life and my overall mood and my physical health feels so much better when I'm allowing myself to have fun and be carefree. And now you can now implement that into your daily routine. You can add that fun into your daily routine. So you might really have like a breakthrough where you kind of realize like, I just needed to have more fun and I would feel so much better. So I don't see this being like the worst Mercury retrograde for you, but you gotta have fun. You gotta let loose. You gotta blow off some steam and just enjoy yourself. All right, so for Libra and Libra rising, I find this Mercury retrograde for Libras to be pretty interesting. This is an interesting one, and this isn't obviously going to be the case for every single Libra, but let's just jump into this here. So Mercury is going retrograde in your 5th house of pleasure, sex, dating. It also has to do with our creative hobbies, things that we do for fun, joy. It also has to do with children. So if you have children or you work with children, children could be highlighted here. And Mercury is going to be squaring Uranus in your 8th house. Now, the 8th house has to do with debt, shared resources. It also has to do with trauma, secrets, fears. It also can have to do with sex and intimacy. Now, you have the 12th house ruled by Mercury, which is a very, again, kind of secretive house. It's also the house of hidden enemies. It's a house that has to do with like deep reflection and healing and things that we kind of keep hidden. Your 9th house is also ruled by Mercury. So here's what I'm seeing. One of the things that could definitely happen for some Libras, now because you also have to remember that your ruling planet is Venus, and Venus is retrograde. So now relationships now are in the mix here. So for some Libra and Libra risings, you could honestly have a pretty like sex-filled Mercury retrograde. Now that's not gonna be the case for everybody, but I could kind of see this manifesting as you meeting up with an ex, you talking to an ex, or you maybe spending time with somebody that you would like never expect to spend time with, maybe even somebody that you don't particularly like. It's almost kind of like you hook up with one of your enemies type of thing. That's not going to be the case for every Libra, but I do see that happening. Now stick with me because there's a lot going on here. There could also be unexpected information coming up regarding children. You could experience some delays or frustrations when it comes to your hobbies, your creative pursuits, the things that you do because you are passionate about it and you love to do it. If you have like a side hustle, like a creative side hustle, you could find that there's some delays or some obstacles there. Another thing that could happen, you could have some really deep insights and some major revelations in regards to a lover or an ex, somebody that you have unfinished business with. This can be a really transformative time for you. You might be addressing some fears that you have surrounding intimacy, sex, dating, things like this. I do feel like you'll be learning about yourself. Like you'll be having some realizations about yourself and about, again, your own fears, your own limitations, maybe within your relationships. So honestly, this can manifest in a lot of different ways, but the themes here is pleasure, hobbies, creativity, and then like this introspective energy, but then also like your fears and maybe other people's money. Like it's really, I'm interested to see how this is going to play out for Libra risings. I'll put it that way. But it might not even be that deep. You could just have some delays around creative pursuits. You could find it's kind of hard to tap into your creative energy, something like this. Now, when Mercury moves back into Capricorn, you're going to be finishing your retrograde out with Mercury in your 4th house. So your attention is going to be shifted to the home, to the family, maybe to your property, like your literal home. For some Libras, this could be redecorating your home or making decisions about changes that you want to make to your home. This could also have to do with moving. You could be moving, or you could be having conversations about moving. You could be making a decision surrounding moving. You could be revisiting something within the home or within the family that maybe was going on at like the second half of December. And now on a more heavier note, this could also manifest as something happening within the home that you have to address right away. maybe something frustrating that you have to deal with in regards to the home or family, or yeah, some issue surrounding your property, something like this. So very interesting for Libra rising and Libra. This could really play out in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this plays out because I'm a Libra rising. So yeah, very, very interesting. So I'm going to leave it there for Libra rising. Let me know how it plays out for you. All right, so for Scorpio and Scorpio rising, Mercury is stationing retrograde in your 4th house of home and family and like your property. And it's going to be squaring Uranus in your 7th house of relationships. Now, so right off the bat, there's some sort of tension or issue that arises between you and a family member. Now, this could be a roommate. It might not actually be a family member, but it would be somebody that you live with. This could also be a family friend, like somebody that's close enough to you that you would consider family. And then also, this is not going to be for everybody, obviously, but this could also manifest as there could be something coming back around. There could be somebody from your past communicating with you that is like really from your past, because the 4th house has to do with our roots and like where we come from. It has a lot to do with childhood in that way. So there could be like an old friend that you've known your whole life, or an old lover that you've known forever, that like reappears out of the blue, but it's probably going to be a family member. That's probably how this is going to manifest. So there's tension here between you and a family member, or somebody that you live with. That's the thing. It's either family or it's a roommate. So if you don't have roommates, it's probably family, something like this. Now, Mercury rules also your 8th house of shared resources, death, inheritance. So this can be an issue that is regarding money. There could be some like financial issue that it has like unfinished business, like something within the family having to do with money. Maybe it literally is an inheritance that like needs to get sorted out. That is coming up to the surface here. So issue with family, it's likely that it has to do with money because the 8th house is our shared resources with other people. So yeah, so that's a thing. So something is getting hashed out here. Could be a fight, could be tension, could just be something that really needs to be addressed and taken care of. Now, when Mercury moves back into Capricorn, you're gonna finish Mercury retrograde with Mercury in your 3rd house. I like this for you because this indicates that there's either going to be an internal realization within yourself or a breakthrough conversation that happens that resolves this issue. This might be a conversation that you have with a sibling or a neighbor, but there's going to be some type of communication, some conversation that happens that really heals and transforms and ultimately resolves the issue that came up at the beginning of the retrograde. So your retrograde is going to start kind of rocky, but I think it's going to end really well. There's definitely an energy here of talking things out, closure, things kind of being wrapped up and like squared away. All right, so for a Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, Mercury is stationing retrograde in your 3rd house, and it's squaring Uranus in your 6th house of work, daily routines, coworkers, health, pets. And then you also have Mercury ruling your 10th house of career, public image, your big picture goals. And then Mercury also rules your 7th house of one-on-one relationships. This is not the worst energy. First of all, there's going to be delays and frustrations regarding your daily routine, regarding your work, delays with your commute. If you're waiting on some sort of communication to come in, there could be a delay with that. Now, there could also be somebody communicating with you or kind of coming up out of the blue that you have worked with or networked with in the past. There could be unfinished business between you guys, or maybe you revisit like a business opportunity or some sort of just like networking opportunity. You could be revisiting that. It could be something that you either missed out on before or overlooked before, or just like wrapping things up with somebody. There's definitely a theme for you guys with work. and relationships, but I really feel like this is work relationships. I don't necessarily feel like this is other relationships. And there's like communication coming in. It's weird. It's like there's out of the blue communication coming in, but then there also might be delays with communication that you're kind of waiting on that kind of throw your routine kind of off track. But I see this for you guys is really just being like one of those Mercury retrogrades that's just like extra Mercury retrograde-y and annoying. This isn't anything too crazy. Now, this is a really great time for you guys to revisit your business plans, your financial plans, your career plans, your big picture goals. This is a really good time to take a look at those things, make adjustments, redo things, plan things, maybe rework things. So this is a really good time for you guys to do things like that. Now, when Mercury moves back into Capricorn, Mercury is going to be moving into your second house and finishing its retrograde there. So one of the big things with this, you guys, there could be an unexpected expense that comes up. There could be a bill that you forgot about. This could be an expense that would have came up at the second half of December that maybe you forgot about, or for, you know, like there's just something about it, it's coming back. There's something with your finances or your possessions that is being highlighted when Mercury moves back into Capricorn. But again, this is a great time for you guys to take a look at your finances, reevaluate your finances. Where can you make adjustments? What is working and what's not working? But I would say like the big thing to look out for as far as like surprises go this Mercury retrograde would be an unexpected expense or bill coming your way. All right, so for Capricorn and Capricorn rising, Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde in your second house of finances and possessions, and it's going to be squaring Uranus in your fifth house of sex, dating, fun, pleasure, hobbies, creative pursuits, joy, recreational activities. Now, so the first thing that could happen is like there's an issue here with money. Now, there could be some delay with your finances that kind of throw a wrench in your plans as far as like dating, right? Going out and spending money with someone or on someone. This could throw a wrench in your plans when it comes to your recreational activities. This could also manifest as you like overspending, like going out one night and maybe being a little bit too wild, because there is kind of like maybe like an overindulgent type of energy here, or just being a little careless with our finances. So either a delay or like you've overspent your money, which then in turn would probably then cause obstacles and delays with your finances. There is also probably going to be some delays or mishaps or turbulence within just like your daily routines. Again, there's a big focus here on money. So there's something being like shaken up with your finances that just kind of throws your plans out of whack. For those of you, if you're in college or some type of schooling, there could be a financial delay with that. This could also be having to do with children, a financial delay that has to do with children. This could be like, let's say that you have like a creative side hustle. You could have a delay with your income there. Like maybe somebody owes you money, or for some reason you're just like not getting paid. So there's definitely something here with finances that will affect your daily routine and your ability to just kind of have fun. Now, when Mercury moves back into Capricorn, you will be finishing the retrograde with Mercury in your first house. So this is like an introspective moment for you guys. This is when you really shift the focus back onto yourself, and you really start to think about what is it that I truly need, that I truly want. This could even be kind of like a bit of a reality check moment where you're like, I need to do better. Like, let's say if you were a little frivolous with your spending earlier in the retrograde, you might have one of those moments where you're just like, I need to get better. I need to get back on track. And you will be able to do that. You're going to be shifting the focus back to yourself. So if you've been paying a lot of attention to just like dating and children and having fun and going out and spending money, you're going to be shifting the focus back to yourself to get back on track. And, you know, getting your priorities in order and getting back to your routine and what works best for you. All right, so for Aquarius and Aquarius rising, honestly, this is probably going to be kind of a heavy Mercury retrograde for you because you have Mercury stationing retrograde in your first house of the self. Mercury is going to be squaring Uranus in your 4th house of home, family, and your property. And then Mercury rules over your 5th house of children, fun, pleasure, sex, dating, hobbies, recreations, and your 8th house of shared resources, debt. The 8th house also has to do with like secrets, fears, trauma, stuff like this. So definitely there's an issue here. There's tension, maybe an argument, some sort of miscommunication between you and a family member. It could be a child, but it could either just be a family member, somebody that you live with, like a roommate. And it's likely that this involves money. So somebody that you're financially intertwined with, maybe you guys have property together or something like this. There's an issue and there's tension here with you and this person. Now, another thing too is that the 4th house, I find it really does have a lot to do with, and it really does impact our sense of safety and security because it's our foundation. And so much of the 4th house is like really rooted in our childhood and how we were raised. It can really affect our self-esteem. So I do feel like for you guys, there's some sort of shakeup, there's some sort of turbulence, something happens that just leaves you feeling kind of insecure, maybe unsafe. It kind of feels like your stability is getting shaken up a bit here. And again, it could have to do with finances, with somebody else involved, with a family member or somebody that you share property with. Now, Mercury, when it moves back into Capricorn, you're gonna finish this retrograde with Mercury in your 12th house. The 12th house is like the house of isolation, retreating. It's the unconscious. It's a very introspective house. It does have to do with healing. So you guys are gonna feel really pushed to retreat and isolate and go within yourself. Now, this could be that this situation that unfolds during Mercury retrograde really triggers you, and it kind of pushes you to confront maybe a fear that you have or something that's like really deep within your psyche. There could be something being brought to your conscious awareness that you were either repressing or trying to ignore and run away from. So I do see this being a heavy Mercury retrograde for you guys, but there is a really beautiful opportunity for healing and having like a breakthrough. So when you retreat within yourself and isolate, you might have to confront some fears or some insecurities, something uncomfortable, but it's gonna lead to a breakthrough. So I do see this ending on a much better note than it starts, but I do think it is gonna be a heavy Mercury retrograde for you guys. So for Pisces and Pisces rising, you guys are having Mercury station retrograde in your 12th house of isolation, retreat, the unconscious, the repressed aspects of ourselves. It also has a lot to do with healing. It's gonna be squaring Uranus in your 3rd house. And then you guys have Mercury ruling over your 4th house of home and property and family, and your 7th house of relationships. This could be any relationship, any one-on-one relationship that you have with somebody else. Now we have like the 3rd house being activated here. 3rd house can have to do with neighbors, siblings. There's something being revealed to you within a relationship. It could be a roommate, a sibling. I mean, it could be any significant relationship, honestly. But there's something that you don't know about that's being revealed to you. It's like something that you are completely unaware of is being brought to the surface and kind of being brought to like the forefront of your mind. Now, there's also some sort of like, could be like a profound realization that you're having within yourself. There's like, with this 3rd house, 12th house energy here, it's like there's communication coming in, information being revealed, but it somehow really relates to like your internal world, like your internal thoughts, or like, again, like a repressed part of yourself. Something is being brought into your awareness because the 12th house has to do with like hidden things, hidden enemies even. So yeah, there's something being revealed, and 3rd house is communication. So there's some communication coming in that is revealing something that you were unaware of. It could have to do with a sibling or a neighbor, or the communication could come through a sibling or a neighbor, something like this. Now, with this 12th house influence here, I honestly feel like at least definitely for the first half of Mercury retrograde, you guys are gonna feel like kind of confused or just like clouded. Something is not really making sense to you here. Now, when Mercury moves back into Capricorn, You're going to finish Mercury retrograde with Mercury in your 11th house of friendships, networks, and it also has to do with social media. So again, there's information coming in. It could come through social media. Somebody could reach out to you through social media, or it could be a friend that you have some sort of really eye-opening and revealing conversation with. Honestly, it's really hard to pin this down, but I just feel like there is information being revealed to you, and it's like, it's coming from somebody else. Like, but it affects you on a really internal level, right? So whether it comes from a friend, neighbor, sibling, it's like, it really affects you internally. It could, again, come through social media. So Mercury retrograde for you guys, like, just expect unexpected communication, things being revealed, things being brought to the surface that were hidden before. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing for Pisces and Pisces rising. All right, you guys, that wraps it up for this Mercury retrograde video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you feel prepared to take on whatever kind of chaos Mercury retrograde throws your way. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. I love you guys. I will see you next time. Bye.